Huh. Let me guess. The whole economy is crashing except for your GameStop. Well, that's if you know how to evaluate the whole economy. Like you got to know about ETFs. So ETFs and a lot of the date traded funds and or index funds that have an allotment towards the S&P 500, that's what's going to fall apart. So as the S&P lose value, you have to look at it and say who's not in the S&P 500. GameStop's not in the S&P 500. They're in the S&P 400 mid cap. So they have the ability to get into the 500 once the 500 falls down, because it will fall down. It's in the same basket. It all comes together. That's why if you look at the market, it's at an all-time high, right? Like shooting through the sky, and GameStop's not, because it's not in the same basket. But the S&P, the whole market gets pulled up by 7 companies, maybe even 10 companies. But yeah, without a doubt, the market's going to have a correction at the top, and then it'll be select companies that have not been given proper valuation move into the S&P 500. Absolutely. And a company like GameStop that has more cash than all these companies, yeah, they're definitely moving in because they get to buy those same said companies. They can invest into those companies. They could buy controlling stakes in multiple companies at a discount. And once they have controlling stakes, well, then you have a multiplier. And that's why they're called a holding company. They're not just a video game store. There's a lot to look forward to here for GameStop. $9 billion cash. And that's right there. That's number 4 in all of retail in the whole United States, behind Amazon, Costco, Walmart. Then you got GameStop. Maybe CVS is right there with them, but we're talking about the big boys. That's why we talk about it. But only one of those companies is not in the S&P 500. Remember that whenever you're trying to invest and you're like trying to break it up and you're saying, what company should I invest with? And you start doing all the homework and you're like, well, wait a minute, are they in the S&P? Because the minute you get into the S&P 500, now we have fun. Now every index fund has to come grab you and grab an allotment of shares, percentage-wise. They got to have a certain allotment of your shares. And guess what? The float's locked. Every float out there in America is 100% owned. So if you want to start buying for ETFs, the volume gets ticked up. Everybody goes crazy. And this is why when companies announce they get into the S&P 500, the stock goes wild. Just wait for it. It'll happen. All the prerequisites to get into the S&P, by the way, GameStop meets them, with the exception of market cap. That's why they're held down. That's why they're pinned down. Because if they had the market cap, they would be in. So, what do? You wait for that whole market to come crashing down to you. And then you just walk in the door when it opens. Learn a little bit about GameStop, man. Understand what profit is. Understand what PE ratios are. They're comfortable. They're at like a 30 PE ratio. Their FCF ratio, free cash flow ratio, like 23, which is crazy. Considering the price, it should be much higher, but they can't have the price go higher because what did I just tell you? If it goes higher, they go into the S&P 500. Do your homework.